Commander Zalthara stood on the bridge of his massive warship, the Infinite Conquest, watching through the viewing screen as another world burned beneath him. The planet's surface glowed orange and red where his plasma bombardment had turned cities into molten glass. This was the 73rd world to fall under his command, and like all the others, it had surrendered within hours of his arrival. "Status report," he growled, his forearms crossed behind his back. His species, the Kethmori, had conquered half the known galaxy through superior technology and ruthless efficiency. Their ships were faster, their weapons more powerful, and their tactics had never failed. "Complete orbital bombardment achieved, Commander," reported his tactical officer. "All major population centers destroyed. Estimated casualties, 4 billion. Resistance has ceased." Zalthara nodded with satisfaction. The pattern was always the same. He would arrive at a world, demonstrate his overwhelming firepower, and the inhabitants would either surrender immediately or die within the first day. No species had ever posed a real challenge to his fleet. "Sir," another officer called out, "we're receiving a priority transmission from High Command." The holographic image of Supreme Admiral Vortak materialized before Zalthara. The ancient Kethmori leader's scarred face showed displeasure, and his 6 eyes glowed with anger. "Zalthara," the admiral began without greeting, "your recent conquests have been disappointingly simple." The commander straightened. "Sir, I have delivered 73 worlds to the Empire in record time. My efficiency ratings are the highest in the fleet." "Efficiency is not the issue," Vortak snapped. "The Council of Warlords grows restless. They seek entertainment, not mere conquest. They want to witness true warfare, not these pathetic surrenders." Zalthara felt a chill run through his exoskeleton. The Council of Warlords ruled the entire Kethmori Empire, and their displeasure could mean death or worse. "What do they require of me, Supreme Admiral?" "They have heard rumors," Vortak continued, his voice lowering to a dangerous whisper, "of a species that possesses something called the darkest warfare tool in their sector, a primitive world called Earth, inhabited by creatures called humans. The Council wants to see this tool in action." "Humans?" Zalthara accessed his ship's database quickly. "Sir, according to our scouts, they are a young species. They have barely achieved faster-than-light travel. Their technology is centuries behind ours. What kind of warfare tool could they possibly possess that would interest the Council?" The Supreme Admiral's expression grew darker. "That is exactly what we intend to find out. You will proceed to Earth immediately. But Zalthara, you will not simply obliterate them from orbit. The Council wants a spectacle. They want to see this warfare tool deployed against you." "You want me to fight them?" Zalthara couldn't hide his confusion. "Sir, with respect, my ship alone could destroy their entire planet in minutes. What challenge could they possibly offer?" "Perhaps none," Vortak admitted. "But the Council has become bored with easy victories. They want to see something new. Something that will remind them why they love warfare. You will engage these humans on equal terms." "Equal terms?" The very concept seemed absurd to Zalthara. "You will limit yourself to ground forces only. No orbital bombardment, no atmospheric poisoning, no planet-killing weapons. You will land your armies and fight them soldier to soldier, weapon to weapon. Let them show you this darkest warfare tool they supposedly possess." Zalthara's mind reeled. The Kethmori hadn't fought a ground war in over a century. Their technology had advanced to the point where such primitive tactics were unnecessary. "Sir, my ground forces number only 50,000 troops. If we're limiting ourselves to surface combat, then you had better hope these humans are as weak as our initial reports suggest," Vortak interrupted. "The Council will be watching, Zalthara. This transmission will be broadcast live to every world in the Empire. Failure is not an option. The hologram flickered and disappeared, leaving Zalthara alone with his thoughts and his suddenly very nervous crew. He turned to his navigation officer. "Set course for Earth," he commanded. "Maximum speed." "Yes, sir," came the reply. "Estimated arrival time, 6 days." As his ship jumped to faster-than-light speed, Zalthara couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. The Council of Warlords was known for their cunning, and they rarely acted without hidden motives. Why would they risk his reputation and their own pride on what appeared to be a primitive species? 3 days into their journey, Zalthara summoned his intelligence officer to his private quarters. Commander Zentar was one of the best analysts in the fleet, and if anyone could make sense of this mission, it would be him. "What do you know about these humans?" Zalthara asked without preamble. Zentar activated a holographic display showing the blue and green world of Earth. "Very little, sir. They're a carbon-based species that evolved from predators. They've been spacefaring for less than 100 of their years. Their technology is primitive but advancing rapidly. Tell me about their military capabilities." "That's where it gets interesting, sir," Zentar admitted. "They have no unified global military. Instead, they maintain hundreds of separate fighting forces divided by geographical regions and political beliefs." "They fight among themselves?" "Constantly, sir. In fact, they've been in some form of warfare almost continuously throughout their recorded history. They have a saying, 'War is the natural state of humanity.'" Zalthara frowned. A species that fought itself constantly should be weak and divided, easy to conquer. "What about their weapons?" "Crude but effective," Zentar replied. "Chemical propellants, nuclear fission, basic energy weapons, nothing that could threaten our armor or shields. However," he paused, seeming uncertain. "However what?" "Sir, there are some unusual reports from our deep scouts. Nothing confirmed, but they mentioned something called asymmetric warfare that the humans practice. The scouts seemed disturbed by what they observed." "Disturbed? By primitives?" "The reports are fragmented, sir, but they mention tactics that our military doctrine doesn't account for. Warfare without honor, they called it. Combat that ignores traditional rules of engagement." Zalthara dismissed this with a wave of his hand. "Desperation tactics from a weak species. When faced with superior force, inferior beings always resort to trickery." But as the ship continued toward Earth, more reports came in from their advanced scouts. Each one was stranger than the last. Humans who fought from hidden positions for months at a time. Soldiers who used their own bodies as weapons. Tactics that seemed designed not just to win battles, but to break the minds of their enemies. On the 5th day of their journey, Zalthara received a transmission that changed everything. It was from Captain Mordux, commander of their fastest scout ship. "Commander," Mordux's voice was strained, almost fearful. "I've been observing human military exercises from long range. Sir, I think we may have underestimated them." "Explain." "They know we're coming, sir. Somehow they detected our presence weeks ago, and instead of preparing to surrender or flee, they're getting ready to fight us." "Of course they are," Zalthara replied. "Primitive species always struggle uselessly before accepting their fate." "No, sir, you don't understand. They're not acting like any species we've encountered before. They're not afraid. They're excited." This gave Zalthara pause. Fear was universal among intelligent species. When faced with overwhelming force, every species they had ever encountered showed the same responses: terror, despair, desperate attempts to negotiate or flee. Excitement was not a normal reaction to imminent conquest. "What do you mean, excited?" "Sir, I intercepted their communications. They're calling this first contact. They're treating our arrival not as a threat, but as an opportunity. Their military leaders are actually arguing over who gets to fight us first." "That's unusual." "It gets worse, sir. I've been analyzing their history and I found something disturbing. Humans don't just fight to win. They fight to test themselves. The more dangerous their opponent, the more enthusiastic they become. Zalthara felt that chill again, stronger this time. Send me all the data you've collected. Everything. Over the next several hours, Zalthara studied the intelligence reports with growing unease. The humans had indeed detected their approach, but instead of panic, their response had been systematic and terrifying. Every military force on the planet had begun mobilizing, not to defend specific territories, but to participate in what they were calling the war to end all wars. Even more disturbing were the historical records. Humans had fought wars that lasted decades, conflicts where millions died, battles where soldiers continued fighting even when their cause was hopeless. They had a concept called total war, where entire civilizations dedicated every resource to destruction. But what truly unsettled Zalthara were the personal accounts from human soldiers. He read testimonies from beings who spoke of combat not as a necessity, but as a calling. Humans who volunteered to fight in foreign wars simply for the experience. Veterans who described battlefield conditions that would have broken the minds of any Kethmori warrior. Yet these humans had not only survived, but thrived. One particular document caught his attention. It was a human military manual titled Asymmetric Warfare, Fighting a Technologically Superior Enemy. The manual was detailed, practical, and terrifying. It outlined methods of combat that violated every civilized convention of war. "Intelligence Officer Zentar to my quarters," he commanded. When Zentar arrived, Zalthara showed him the manual. "Have you seen this?" Zentar's expression grew grim. "Yes, sir. I was hoping you wouldn't find it." "Why?" "Sir, this document describes warfare as we've never conceived it. Look at Chapter 12. Psychological warfare and enemy demoralization. They have systematic methods for breaking their enemy's will to fight that go far beyond simple combat." Zalthara read through the chapter, his unease growing with each page. The humans had developed techniques for warfare that targeted not just the body, but the mind and spirit of their enemies. They studied their opponent's psychology, their fears, their cultural weaknesses, and then exploited them ruthlessly. "Chapter 18 is worse," Zentar continued. "Urban combat and population resistance. Sir, they've studied how to turn their own cities into weapons. Every building becomes a fortress, every civilian a potential combatant. They call it making the enemy pay for every meter in blood." "This is impossible," Zalthara muttered. "No civilized species fights this way." "That's just it, sir. I don't think they consider themselves civilized, not in the way we understand the term." That night, Zalthara couldn't sleep. He kept returning to one particular passage in the Human Warfare Manual. "The enemy will expect us to fight according to their rules, using their definitions of honor and acceptable tactics. This is their first mistake. Humans do not fight to be honorable. We fight to win." As his ship approached Earth's solar system, Zalthara finally understood why the Council of Warlords had sent him here. They hadn't sent him to witness Earth's darkest warfare tool. They had sent him to discover that humans themselves were that tool. The thought that had been growing in his mind for days finally crystallized into certainty. This wasn't going to be a conquest. This was going to be a test. And for the first time in his military career, Commander Zalthara wasn't sure his side was going to pass it. The infinite conquest dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of Earth's solar system with a flash of distorted space. Zalthara stood on his bridge, watching the small blue planet grow larger on his screens. From this distance, Earth looked peaceful, almost defenseless. "Sir, we're receiving multiple transmissions from the planet," his communications officer reported. "They're being broadcast on multiple frequencies. Put them through." The main screen filled with the image of a human. Zalthara had never seen one of these creatures in person before. The being was smaller than he had expected, with pale skin and brown hair. But its eyes held an intensity that made Zalthara uncomfortable. "Attention, alien vessel," the human spoke in accented galactic standard. "This is Admiral Sarah Chen of the United Earth Defense Coalition. We welcome you to our solar system." Zalthara gestured for the communication channel to open. "I am Commander Zalthara of the Kethmori Imperial Fleet. You will surrender your planet immediately or face total destruction." The human's expression didn't change. No fear, no desperation, not even surprise. Instead, Admiral Chen smiled. It was not a friendly expression. "Commander Zalthara, we've been monitoring your approach for 3 weeks. We know who you are and why you're here. We accept your challenge." "Challenge?" Zalthara was confused. "I am not offering a challenge. I am demanding surrender." "You demanded to see Earth's darkest warfare tool," Admiral Chen replied calmly. "We're showing it to you. Us." The transmission ended abruptly, leaving Zalthara staring at a blank screen. He turned to his tactical officer. "Scan the planet. I want to know their military capabilities." "Sir, I'm detecting massive energy signatures across the planet's surface. It appears they have constructed defensive positions in every major population center." "Numbers." "Preliminary scans show approximately 2 billion humans under arms, sir. They've mobilized their entire adult population." Zalthara felt his stomach drop. 2 billion? His entire ground force numbered only 50,000. But surely technology would overcome numbers. "What about their equipment?" "Mixed, sir. Some advanced energy weapons, nuclear devices, and—" "Sir, this is strange. They appear to have deliberately downgraded much of their equipment to match our technological level." "What do you mean?" "They've removed their most advanced weapons systems and reverted to kinetic projectile weapons, basic explosives, and handheld energy devices. It's as if they want to fight us on equal terms." Zalthara couldn't understand this. Every species they had encountered had used their best available weapons when facing invasion. Why would these humans deliberately handicap themselves? "Sir," another officer called out, "we're detecting movement throughout their solar system. They have ships, but they're maintaining position around their planet. They're not attempting to engage us in space." Through the view screen, Zalthara could see the truth of it. Dozens of human vessels hung in orbit around Earth. But they made no aggressive moves. They were waiting. "Communications from the planet again, sir." This time, a different human appeared on screen. This one was older, with gray hair and scars across his face. His uniform was different, and his bearing suggested high military rank. "Commander Zalthara, I am General Marcus Rodriguez, Supreme Allied Commander of Earth's ground forces. We understand you wish to fight a ground war. We accept these terms." "General," Zalthara replied carefully, "you realize that ground combat will only delay your inevitable defeat. Your forces cannot match our technology." General Rodriguez laughed, and the sound sent chills through Zalthara's exoskeleton. "Commander, you've spent your career fighting civilized species that surrender when faced with superior firepower. We're not a civilized species." "What do you mean?" "We've been studying your tactics for weeks. Every world you've conquered, you've used the same strategy. Demonstrate overwhelming force, demand surrender, occupy without significant resistance. You've never had to actually fight for a victory." Zalthara bristled. "We have won 73 consecutive campaigns against species that valued their lives more than their freedom," the general replied. "That's not us. We've spent our entire history killing each other. We're very good at it. You cannot defeat superior technology with primitive tactics." "Can't we?" General Rodriguez leaned forward. "Commander, in our history we have a saying. It's not the size of the dog in the fight. It's the size of the fight in the dog." "You're about to learn what that means." The transmission ended, and Zalthara found himself facing a dilemma he had never encountered before. Every instinct told him to simply bombard the planet from orbit and end this quickly. But his orders were specific. Fight them on the ground and let the Council see their warfare tool in action. "Prepare the landing forces," he commanded. "We assault the largest city." "Sir, which city? They have hundreds of major population centers." Zalthara studied the planetary scans. One city stood out, a massive urban area called New York. Over 8 million inhabitants, dense construction, perfect for demonstrating Keth Mori superiority. "There," he pointed to the city. "We take New York. Once we control their largest population center, they will understand the futility of resistance." "Yes, sir. Deploying dropships now." 50 massive Kethmori assault ships descended toward Earth's atmosphere, each carrying 1,000 soldiers in powered armor. Their sensors showed human forces mobilizing in response, but the numbers seemed manageable. Perhaps 100,000 defenders in the target zone. But as they entered the atmosphere, something strange happened. Instead of trying to shoot down the approaching ships, the humans let them land. The dropships touched down in Central Park without a single shot being fired. Zalthara personally led the first wave, his powered armor gleaming in the Earth's sunlight. Around him, 50,000 of the Empire's finest soldiers formed up in perfect battle formations. Across the park, he could see human defenders taking positions, but they seemed almost casual about it. "Attention, human forces," Zalthara broadcast through external speakers. "You are surrounded and outgunned. Surrender now, and your deaths will be quick." In response, loudspeakers throughout the city crackled to life. A human voice, speaking in accented galactic standard, filled the air. "Attention, Kethmori forces. Welcome to New York City. Population 8 million. We hope you brought enough ammunition." Then something happened that Zalthara would never forget. The humans laughed. Not just the soldiers facing his army, but the entire city. 8 million voices raised in collective mocking laughter that echoed off the buildings and filled the air. "Begin the assault," Zalthara ordered, his voice tight with anger. His forces advanced across the park, weapons ready. The humans fell back, but not in panic. They moved with practiced precision, like they had done this before. As the Kethmori army reached the edge of the park, the first shots rang out. But they didn't come from the human soldiers in front of them. They came from above. Every window in every building had a human with a weapon. Every rooftop, every balcony, every fire escape was occupied. The Kethmori found themselves in the center of a three-dimensional battlefield where every surface was hostile. "Take cover!" Zalthara shouted, but there was nowhere to go. The humans had turned their own city into a massive killing ground, and the Kethmori were caught in the center of it. The advanced armor protected them from the initial barrage, but the humans quickly adapted. Instead of trying to pierce the armor directly, they targeted joints, sensors, air and cooling systems. They used the environment against the invaders, channeling them into kill zones and ambush points. "Sir," his lieutenant reported over the communication channel, "they're not fighting like any enemy we've faced before. They're using unconventional tactics." Zalthara watched in horror as a group of human civilians rushed one of his squads. They weren't soldiers. He could tell by their clothing and movements. But they carried explosives strapped to their bodies and detonated them in close proximity to his troops, trading their lives for tactical advantage. "They're using their own people as weapons," he reported to his command staff. "Correction, sir," came a voice from one of his scouts. "I'm observing the human command structure. Those civilians volunteered. They're standing in line waiting for their turn to attack us." This was incomprehensible. No species sacrificed its own people willingly, especially non-combatants. But everywhere Zalthara looked, he saw the same thing. Humans who threw themselves at his forces with no regard for their own survival, intent only on inflicting damage. The city itself seemed to fight them. The humans had spent weeks preparing, turning every street into a trap, every building into a fortress. They had studied Keth Mori tactics and developed counters for everything. When his forces tried to advance down the wide avenues, they found the roads blocked with overturned vehicles and debris. When they tried to go through buildings, they discovered the humans had filled them with explosive traps and ambush points. When they tried to fly over obstacles, surface-to-air weapons appeared from hidden positions. "Status report," Zalthara demanded after 6 hours of fighting. "Sir, we've advanced 12 blocks. Casualties are at 15% and climbing. The humans they're not behaving rationally." "Explain." "Sir, they're treating this like some kind of game. When we kill their soldiers, the others cheer and congratulate them for taking some of us with them. When we destroy their positions, they rebuild them overnight using their dead as construction materials." Zalthara felt sick. "They're using corpses to build fortifications?" "Yes, sir. And, sir, they're leaving messages, taunts written in our language. They're making jokes about our tactics." The communication channel crackled with another transmission from the human command. This time it was Admiral Chen again, and she was smiling. "How are you enjoying New York, Commander? We thought you might appreciate our hospitality." "Your losses are massive," Zalthara replied. "You cannot sustain this level of casualties." "Can't we?" Admiral Chen's smile widened. "Commander, we've been fighting like this for thousands of years. This is what we call Tuesday. You're sacrificing your people for nothing. Surrender now, and I will spare the survivors." "Oh, Commander," the Admiral laughed, "you still don't understand. We're not trying to win. We're trying to teach you something." "Teach me what?" "That there's a difference between conquering a world and conquering humanity. You can destroy our cities, you can kill our soldiers, you can even glass our planet, but you can't make us quit." The transmission ended, and Zalthara realized with growing horror that the humans were right. In 8 hours of fighting, his forces had taken massive casualties and gained almost nothing. The humans fought with a ferocity that defied logic, and they seemed to actually enjoy the combat. Worse, they were learning. Every Keth Mori tactic that worked once was countered within hours. The humans adapted faster than any species he had encountered, turning their weaknesses into strengths and their defeats into lessons. As night fell over New York City, Zalthara found himself commanding a force that was trapped in hostile territory, surrounded by enemies who refused to follow the basic rules of warfare. And somewhere in the back of his mind, he began to understand that the Council of Warlords hadn't sent him here to conquer Earth. They had sent him here to learn what real warfare looked like. 3 days had passed since the landing, and Commander Zalthara's situation had become a nightmare. His forces now controlled less than 6 square blocks of New York City, and every meter had cost them dearly. The humans didn't just fight. They fought with an intelligence and adaptability that terrified him. "Casualty report," he demanded from his bunker, which the humans had already bombed twice overnight. "Sir, we're down to 38,000 combat-effective troops. Medical teams report unusual psychological stress among the survivors." "Explain." Lieutenant Kexamar looked uncomfortable. "Sir, our soldiers are experiencing what the medics are calling combat fatigue. They're requesting rotation out of the battle zone. Some are refusing direct orders." Zalthara couldn't believe what he was hearing. Keth Mori soldiers had never shown psychological weakness before. They were genetically and culturally conditioned for warfare. "What's causing this?" "The humans, sir. They don't fight like any enemy we've trained against. They use psychological warfare as much as kinetic weapons." Before Zalthara could respond, the bunker's communication system activated on its own. Somehow the humans had hacked into their encrypted network. "Good morning, Commander," came a cheerful human voice. "This is Sergeant Mike Torres, 82nd Airborne Division. How are you feeling today?" How did you access our communications? Oh, that's easy. We've been listening to your radio chatter since day one. Your encryption is pretty good, but we've had 3 days to crack it. Nice job on the tactical formations, by the way. Very textbook, very predictable. Zalthara felt rage building. If you can hear us, then you know we still have superior firepower. Surrender now. Actually, Commander, let me tell you what we know. You landed 50,000 troops. You're down to 38,000. Your supply situation is critical because we've been hitting your logistics lines. Your troops are demoralized because they've never fought an enemy that actually fights back effectively. The human was right about everything, and that terrified Zalthara more than he could admit. But here's what you don't know, Sergeant Torres continued. Yesterday, we finished evacuating all non-combatants from Manhattan. Everyone left in the city is here by choice. We have 40,000 volunteers who want to fight you specifically. They've been waiting their whole lives for this. Impossible. No species willingly enters combat. Commander, you really don't understand us, do you? We have humans flying in from other continents just to join this fight. Veterans from every conflict we've ever had. Active military personnel on leave. Even civilians with hunting licenses. They're all coming here because word got out that aliens invaded New York. The communication cut out, leaving Zalthara in silence. He activated his personal communicator to reach his ship in orbit. Commander, came the voice of his executive officer, we've been monitoring the situation. Should we begin orbital bombardment? No, Zalthara replied through gritted teeth. The Council wants to see ground combat. But prepare contingency plans. If this gets much worse, sir, there's something else. We've been intercepting human communications worldwide. They're treating this battle like some kind of entertainment. They're broadcasting it live on something called the Internet. Zalthara pulled up the communications intercepts on his tactical display. What he saw shook him to his core. Humans around the world were watching the battle in real time, cheering for their soldiers and making jokes about Kethmori tactics. They had turned his invasion into a spectacle. Worse, military units from other nations were demanding to participate. The humans were arguing among themselves about who deserved the honor of fighting aliens. They were competing for the right to face certain death. Sir, Lieutenant Kexmar interrupted. We're receiving another transmission. This one's from their overall commander. General Rodriguez appeared on the screen again, but this time he was standing in what looked like a war room filled with human officers. Behind him, Zalthara could see tactical displays showing the battle from multiple angles. Commander Zalthara, I wanted to give you an update on our situation. Speak quickly, General. I have a battle to fight. That's just it, Commander. You don't. This isn't a battle anymore. It's a demonstration. What do you mean? General Rodriguez gestured to the displays behind him. For 3 days, we've been showing the galaxy what human warfare looks like. Every engagement has been recorded, analyzed, and broadcast. The entire civilized galaxy is watching. Zalthara felt a chill of realization. You planned this. Commander, we've known about your species for months. We've studied every conquest you've made, analyzed every tactic you've used. We know all about the Council of Warlords and their demand for entertainment. How could you possibly know about? Because they contacted us directly, General Rodriguez interrupted. 3 months ago, the Council sent us a message. They told us they were sending their best commander to evaluate our warfare capabilities. They wanted to see if humans deserved a place in their galactic empire. The truth hit Zalthara like a physical blow. This was a setup from the beginning. Not a setup, Commander. A test. The Council wanted to see if humanity was worth recruiting. They've grown tired of easy conquests and weak enemies. They wanted to find a species that could give them the kind of warfare that made conquest meaningful again. And you agreed to this? General Rodriguez smiled, that terrifying human smile. Commander, the Council of Warlords offered us a choice. Prove ourselves worthy through combat, or be conquered like all the others? What did you think we were going to choose?" The communication ended, and Zalthara finally understood the full scope of what had happened. The Council hadn't sent him here to conquer Earth. They had sent him here to be conquered by it. They wanted to recruit humanity, and they needed to see proof that humans could defeat the Empire's best commander. But understanding didn't solve his immediate problem. His forces were trapped in an increasingly hopeless situation, facing an enemy that seemed to grow stronger with each passing hour. "Sir," called his tactical officer, "we're detecting massive human reinforcements arriving in the city. Transport aircraft from around the globe. It looks like they're bringing in specialized units." Through his viewing scope, Zalthara could see the truth of it. Aircraft were landing constantly, disgorging fresh troops who moved with the confidence of veterans. But these weren't just soldiers. He could see different uniforms, different equipment, different fighting styles. "Intelligence analysis quickly," he ordered. "Sir, we're identifying special forces units from multiple nations: British SAS, Russian Spetsnaz, American Navy SEALs, German GSG-9, Israeli Sayeret Matkal. It appears they've assembled the most elite human warriors on the planet." "How many?" "Conservative estimate, 10,000 special operations troops, all veteran combat personnel." Zalthara realized that his situation had just become impossible. His remaining troops were exhausted, demoralized, and facing fresh elite forces who had been specifically chosen and trained for this exact scenario. "Sir, incoming priority transmission from the Council of Warlords." The holographic image of Supreme Admiral Vortak materialized, but his expression was different than before. Instead of anger or impatience, Zalthara saw something that looked almost like satisfaction. "Zalthara, how goes your conquest?" "Supreme Admiral, the situation has become complex." "These humans are not like other species we have encountered." "Indeed they are not," Vortak agreed. "Tell me, Commander, what have you learned about human warfare?" Zalthara chose his words carefully. "Sir, they fight without regard for conventional tactics. They seem to enjoy combat rather than fear it. They treat warfare as an art form rather than a necessity." "And what does that tell you?" "That they are—" Zalthara struggled with the implications. "That they are natural warriors, sir. Perhaps the most effective fighters in the galaxy." "Excellent assessment, Commander. You have completed your mission." "Sir?" "Your orders were to evaluate Earth's darkest warfare tool. You have discovered that humanity itself is that tool. They don't possess weapons of war, Zalthara. They are weapons of war." The Admiral's words confirmed Zalthara's worst fears. This had never been about conquest. It had been about recruitment. "The Council has been watching your engagement with great interest," Vortak continued. "We have seen enough. Begin immediate withdrawal of your forces." "Sir, the humans will interpret retreat as victory." "Let them," the Admiral replied. "They have earned it. Signal full withdrawal, Zalthara. You're coming home." As Zalthara gave the orders for retreat, he received one final transmission from the humans. This time it was Admiral Chen, but she wasn't gloating. Instead, she looked almost respectful. "Commander Zalthara, we understand you're withdrawing. We want you to know that you and your soldiers fought with honor. Admiral, your species has proven itself beyond any doubt. You fight unlike any enemy we have faced." "Commander," Admiral Chen said seriously, "we want to make something clear. This was never about defeating you personally. This was about showing the galaxy that humanity won't be easy prey." "You have accomplished that goal, Admiral." "Good, because we'd rather be allies than enemies. The universe is a big place, Commander. There's room for both the Kethmori Empire and humanity." As his surviving forces lifted off from Earth's surface, Zalthara found himself looking back at the blue planet with something approaching respect. The humans had demonstrated that they were indeed the darkest warfare tool in their sector, not because they possessed terrible weapons, but because they themselves were the weapon. They fought with intelligence, adaptability, and a ferocity that turned every disadvantage into an opportunity. They had taken an invasion force that should have conquered them easily and turned it into a recruitment test for one of the galaxy's most powerful empires. But perhaps most importantly, they had shown that they could fight with honor even while employing the most ruthless tactics imaginable. They were warriors by nature, but they were not monsters. A month later, Zalthara stood before the full council of warlords in their great chamber. The ancient beings listened intently as he delivered his report on humanity's warfare capabilities. In conclusion, he said, I recommend that humanity be offered full alliance status within the Empire. They possess the most effective ground combat capabilities I have ever encountered, combined with tactical innovation that could revolutionize our military doctrine. The eldest warlord, Vorthak the Ancient, leaned forward in his throne. And you believe they would accept such an alliance? Sir, they have already proven they will not be conquered, but they have also shown they can be reasoned with. An alliance serves both our interests. Very well, the Ancient declared. The Council approves. Contact Earth. Offer them a place among the stars. As he left the council chamber, Zalthara reflected on the irony of his situation. He had been sent to conquer Earth and had instead recommended them as allies. But he had learned something valuable in his defeat. Sometimes the greatest victory comes from recognizing when you've found an equal. Humanity had declared themselves to be their planet's darkest warfare tool, and they had proven it. But they had also proven they were capable of something far more valuable than mere destruction. They were capable of turning enemies into friends through the simple act of fighting with honor. The universe was about to become a very different place, and Commander Zalthara found himself looking forward to seeing what humanity would do with their new position among the stars.